It's a great pleasure for me, obviously, on behalf of Disasteraid, to introduce Ed Cox to you. Ed is our head of deployment and also training. So he's the guy that goes out into the disaster areas, assesses and then tells me what is required, and then we send it, and then he has the task of delivering that aid on behalf of all of us. And as a partner club, the Rotary Club of Hope Island, I'm sure that Ed will fill you in on all the different things that he has to do whilst he's out on deployment. I'd just quickly like to read something to you, and you'll probably hit me over the head with the chair in a couple of minutes, but this was out of a local paper, and it only came through yesterday. And it's been written by one of the volunteers in the Philippines, where Ed has just spent 7 weeks delivering the aid. And he'll go in, there's a lot more than delivering the aid. But it says on this, and I quote, the torrential rains and blackout did not prevent, and I can't say it, Banowans, from giving a farewell party to their adopted brother, who came all the way from Scotland to help them recover the tatters of their lives from what remains of their small fishing and farming village following the devastation of Typhoon Pablo. Ed Cox, at 36, is a veteran humanitarian and disaster response expert from Disasteraid International, a unit of Rotary. He learned about the need of this small village, which first became Disasteraid International's humanitarian and disaster response partner during Typhoon Sebdon, which was the tragedy in January of last year in Cagayan de Oro. Unlike other so-called humanitarian and disaster response experts from other organisations, Cox stayed in Banao for more than a month, taking charge of the early recovery and humanitarian efforts here in partnership with the Balai Mindanao Foundation. This team of volunteers in coordinating the village council, and most especially in setting up of the tent communities for the survivors who badly needed decent shelter from the harsh elements. It goes on to say that Cox is the only white man who really immersed into the community. Once admitted his frustration and disappointment with the response from government and so-called other expert disaster response and humanitarian agencies. Then Ed is quoted as saying, "But then I see the survivors, and then hope springs back to life. Yes, you can see the sadness in their eyes, but you can also see there is a fire of hope burning within them. It is our job, our work, our responsibility to make sure that this fire of hope is in them is not extinguished. It is our job to convert this hope into positive action for them to be able to help themselves. That's the meaning of our assistance." I think that basically, in Ed working in the Philippines and as everywhere else in the world that he works, this is the mantra of Disasteraid International, Disasteraid Australia, and each and every one of us as Rotarians is to make that difference and to give people hope. I'm very, very proud to introduce Ed Cox, and as I said, this is the man that does deliver the aid on our behalf and does deliver hope with that. Ed, over to you.
Jenny, thank you very much for that very flattering introduction. Thank you, firstly, for letting me come and speak to you today. What I want to be able to do is basically give you a little bit more of an idea as to where your donations go, what we do when we're overseas, how we make sure that we absolutely maximise the resources that we've got and the funds that you guys raise for the boxers. And I'll also talk a little bit about the volunteers as well, because that's the most important part of what we do. I'm in a very lucky position, I get paid to do this job, but it's the volunteers who are behind me, in front of me, or trying to stamp on me. They're the ones who are really important, because they're the ones who gave up their Christmas, they gave up their New Year, so they could come over to the middle of nowhere to be guided by me it was their first deployment, and yeah, they're the ones who are the really special people, as far as I'm concerned. So the cyclone hit Banao. Well, it hit Mindanao, which is the largest southern island of the Philippines, on the 4th of December at, I believe, 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, Disasteraid International was supposed to be deploying to Burma, but we knew that this cyclone was coming in, and obviously we've got a lot of good working partners in Mindanao, so we just held back from deploying into Burma just to make sure that everything was going to be okay in Mindanao. I was in touch with our partner organisation and my friends over there, and talking to them hourly through the night, seeing if Cagayan de Oro had been hit the same as it had the year before. But it became evident quite soon that Cagayan de Oro up in the north of Mindanao was fine for the storm had passed to the south. But over the next 24 hours, we started to get the reports coming in from the southern areas in Mindanao, Baganga and Davao Valley, and they'd been absolutely devastated. The storm had hit at 1 o'clock in the morning. It started to dissipate at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was a Category 4 cyclone, and it was 250 miles wide. So the death toll at the moment stands at 1,068, with 80 people missing. The 80 people missing are fishermen who came from a different area and didn't believe that the cyclone was going to be as bad as it was, so they went out and carried on fishing. They've unfortunately never been heard of since. The death toll will keep rising due to injuries, orthopedic injuries, punctured lungs, that kind of thing that you see happening quite a lot. So the team arrived, and we've got on the right-hand side there, you've got Bo, she's from San Francisco, Adrian Parks in the middle, he's from the UK, and Dave Tzuski, Australian. And next to Dave is Bibing. Bibing is the executive officer for Belay Mindanao, and we've worked together before on Cyclone Sendon in CDO, so got a really good working relationship. So this is us driving down to the affected area. It was a 9-hour drive, and what we'd do is we'd stop every now and again so that we could talk to the communities, because as you start travelling from San Fran, it doesn't seem like there's a disaster. Nothing's out of place, everything's fine. And I start thinking, well, this should be a lot worse than this. So we carry on driving, and then you start to see indicators, and then you carry on driving a few more hours, and it's just gone. Everywhere was just completely destroyed. So when we got to these communities, we'd stop, we'd talk to them, we'd find out what their story was, find out what their needs were, find out what the situation was for them as survivors on the ground. So we arrived the night before this photograph was taken at about 1 o'clock in the morning to the military base in Baganga. Baganga was the area that we wanted to work in because we knew that that's where the cyclone, the eye of the storm, had made landfall. That's where most of the damage was. The area of Baganga is mainly tourism, farming and coconuts. All gone. Everything was gone. This photograph is Dave Tzuski meeting the barangay leader. Now, if I say barangay, sorry, what I'm meaning is community or village. So we arrived the night before this photograph was taken, and Colonel Chris Mortella was very keen to identify areas where we might be able to help. So what we decided to do that night, once we'd seen the extent of the devastation as we were coming in, we realised that we were going to be a lot more effective as an aid organisation if we focused all of our aid efforts into one smaller area, rather than trying to spread ourselves too thin and not really making much of effect with anyone.
Excuse me, can I just ask, how long after the cyclone hit are you on ground?
This is December the 10th, no, this is the morning of December the 11th, sorry, and the cyclone